Well, a few years ago, there was a young boy who was given a very important role in the annual Christmas play. He was to be the angel who would announce the birth of Jesus. And so for weeks, he rehearsed the line that had been given to him. "Behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy." Well, of course, the whole family gets completely behind this boy, and whenever they all get together, they want him to dress up in his costume and rehearse this line with them. "Behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy." They're certain that when he grows up, he's definitely going to be the next Charlton Heston. Well, the great night comes for the Christmas pageant, and everybody's in place. The whole family shows up. Visitors from far and near are all here to watch these children in their costumes, complete with bathrobes for the three kings and fake wings and halos for the angels. Everyone is really into this thing. As the pageant starts, the excitement is electric. Of course, the dramatic first event is the announcement of the angel. The curtains open, the spotlight hits the young boy, but as he stands center stage in the middle of all this excitement, his brain goes frozen. Every grandparent, aunt, uncle, and neighbor comes to the edge of their seat wanting to say it for him. You can see them in unison, almost mouthing it together. "Behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy." But his brain's gone numb. He just can't say it. So finally, in a heroic moment, he fills his lungs with breath and blurts out the words, "Boy, have I got some news for you." Well, perhaps, biblically speaking, the boy gets the words wrong. Nevertheless, for our modern ears today, though, I think he does get the Advent message right. Or at least that's certainly the message the angel Gabriel brings to Mary in our reading this morning, isn't it? His words may be a little different too, but they certainly capture the spirit of this season. Do not be afraid. Christ is coming. Although while Scripture describes Mary taking this news pretty well considering, I can't imagine such news sounding so good to a first century unwed teenage girl. Which is the reason most artists throughout the centuries have depicted her in this moment in shock and awe rather than joy and celebration. I suspect you've seen some of these paintings before. The background is usually a tranquil scene or the comfort of a cozy room, instilling in the viewer that Mary's in a quiet, comfortable place. But the angel Gabriel brings a stark contrast to the background, often shown with large, beautiful wings draped in garments of vivid colors. Between Mary and Gabriel, papers are usually strewn about the scene, or smoke from a candle wick is floating in the air, indicating that Gabriel's appearance has been so swift and abrupt as to blow the papers on the ground and put out the light of the candle. And there stands Mary in the midst of it all, typically with an uncomfortable look on her face, her hands sometimes postured toward Gabriel as if she's frightened. Sometimes she's even hunched, arms over her stomach, as if she's in pain at the news she's just received. You see, the angel Gabriel is a symbol of the way in which God, more often than not, comes into our lives. Abruptly, disrupting, inconvenient. You see, when God sends word to us, life is turned upside down, and things will never be the same. And yet I wonder if we recognize it anymore. Like people who have lived next to the train tracks for years, I worry we no longer hear the sound of the train. After all, we've been celebrating the traditions of this season, most of us, for our entire lives. And I wonder, does the news of this season still have the power to jolt you awake? Or has it become instead a low, dull rumble that we hardly notice anymore? At a congregation I served previously, one year for the Christmas cantata, the choir decided to sing Christmas carols that had been recently composed from around the world. They thought it'd be good to celebrate Christmas as a contemporary event, to share with the congregation some of the new Christmas music that's being written even today. Well, as you can imagine, the cantata did not go over very well. Nobody wants to hear anything new at Christmas, grumbled one of our members in a letter to the choir director. You shouldn't be messing with our traditional Christmas music. We love it for the way it is, and always has been. I suppose that's the reason the suggested readings from the lectionary for the beginning of this season typically are biblical texts that attempt to rouse us to attention. Like John the Baptist reminding us to stay awake and to prepare for the Lord. And Isaiah who says, "Oh, that you would tear open the heavens and come down so the mountains would quake at your presence." Even Jesus warns in Mark, "The sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, the stars will be falling from heaven, the power of the heavens will be shaken, so be aware, keep alert. For you do not know the time or when he will come." You see, Christ coming into the world is life-changing, world-upending news. It's news that changes everything. It's news we may not even want or expect to hear, but it's news we so desperately need, or at least, I know I do. And I suspect I'm not alone. Because let's be honest, we all get caught in situations for which there is no humanly conceivable way out. Enslaved to habits that are literally killing us. Facing insurmountable grief from which we cannot seem to break free. Mired in conflict that seems to have no possible resolve. O come, thou fount of every blessing. O come, long expected Jesus. O come, Emmanuel. I can remember it was early fall when Alice's husband walked out on their marriage. Left her and her kids with barely enough money to get through the week. She was a member of the congregation I was serving at the time. She didn't have a job. She'd quit when her youngest had been born. I'm proud to say her church moved into action. Volunteers stepped up to help with child care. People quietly made financial contributions. And by early December, Alice was back on her feet, had a job again. Things were looking up. One afternoon, she dropped by to say hello, and I asked her, "So tell me, how are you doing really?" She said, "You know, my new world is a lot more demanding than my old one. I loved that world, thought it was the best I could do. And when it came apart, I literally thought I was going to die. But this new world I've been given, believe it or not, it's better. Better for me, better for the kids. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say this or not, but that divorce, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. I could have never imagined the words, 'I don't love you anymore,' being good news. Divorce? Good news?" You know, I was corresponding with one of you about angels recently. The point was made that we often make angels into either those creatures that welcome us at the pearly gates, or those mystical, ethereal beings of which we might catch a glimpse but really don't have any kind of real physical body. And yet I wonder if humanity throughout time has made them into something apart from ourselves because we didn't want to hear what they had to say when they were in our midst. I mean, what if angels are simply those people who serve as a conduit for God's message or presence in a given moment when we may not expect it or even want it, but absolutely need it? I have a colleague who believes this is absolutely true. He was often called to speak at organizations on campus. He was the campus minister at the time. So when he received a call from the fraternity president, he said, "Sure, what would you like to be the subject?" The president said, "Well, we got in some trouble with the university and have to do 12 hours of remedial education, so we thought you'd be good for an hour." "Sounds like an inspirational opportunity," he said. He went on to say, "I arrived on time late on a Thursday evening to the fraternity house, was met at the door by an 8 or 9-year-old boy. I thought to myself, that's kind of odd, 9 p.m. on a weeknight." The boy asked, "Are you the preacher?" He said, "Yes." "Well, come on in. Everybody's waiting for you." The boy took me back into the room where the fraternity brothers were gathered. Then the young boy immediately climbed up into the lap of one of these fraternity brothers and fell asleep. I proceeded with my lecture on civic duty and Christian ethics and all the things I thought a troublesome fraternity needed to hear. And at the end, I asked if there were any questions. Of course, there were not. They'd put in their hour. It was time to go. All except the student with that young boy sleeping on his lap. He gently woke up the child, told him to go up and brush his teeth. Then he'd be up in just a bit to read him his bedtime story. I walked outside with the fraternity president. He thanked me graciously for my words, took out a cigarette, offered me one. When I declined, he lit one up for himself. Curious, I said, "So what's with the kid?" Taking a deep draw on the cigarette, he blew out smoke and said, "Well, you know, we all have to do community service, right? I signed us up for this Big Brother program, and Billy there, he has a mom, but she's not doing too well. Actually, she's not doing very well at all. She's a crack addict. And so we've arranged for him to be here when he needs a place of safety. Sometimes it's one night, most nights it's 3 or 4. He took another draw on a cigarette and he said, "You know, preacher, when I pledged a fraternity, I never thought I'd be caring for a child." My colleague said to me later, "You know, I'm certain there's an angel in that story. I just can't figure out if it's that little boy or those fraternity brothers. All I know is that I continue to find God in the most unexpected places." And perhaps that's the reason, at the end of the day, we'd rather make angels into mysterious, mythical beings with wings and halos. After all, it may turn out that angels are more like you and me than we'd like to believe. In fact, if we paid attention, we might just find ourselves in opportunities to be and to share good news like Christ is coming. In fact, I'm aware of a clergy couple who just over a year ago now had been through a pretty lengthy discernment process. They'd been deciding whether they were going to stay in their current ministries and write a new chapter or move to a new opportunity and begin afresh. In fact, they just made the decision to stay the night before when one of them received a phone call the next day. The caller's name was, I think, something like Milt or Jim. No, I think it was Bryant. I don't know, could have been Gabriel for all I know. Anyway, I can't tell you all the details of the conversation. Something about being from Sandy Springs Christian Church, wondering if this couple might be interested in a move to a new ministry in Atlanta. The phone call's a blur now. But my friend tells me he could have sworn the conversation began something like, "Boy, have I got some news for you." I'm not going to lie. It was unexpected. But a year later, I can honestly say, it's some of the best news we ever received.